Hey, this is Karen Evans. Thanks so much for joining for this super cute fall vignette. I have it as a 3 by 3 inch, but you could do it larger. I want you to draw a simple bushel basket and a pumpkin. And then just give the outline of leaves and the mums. So we're going to go back to that in a second, but if you need to go back, go ahead and pause the video and get that on there. I'm going to start just showing some color mixing so we get everything on the palette before we start. I have a Quinn Scarlet. I use Daniel Smith paints, and I'm using a medium orange, a pyrrole orange. I'm going to use a medium yellow and yellow ochre, which I love. This is a nice fallish brown earthy color. Just looks like a fall leaf to me, like an oak leaf. I'm going to get a little bit of that medium yellow, mix it with my red. Mix up your own oranges. We're going to need for the pumpkin, you're going to need a lightish orange, a medium, and a darker at the very least. And some orange that has more yellow, some orange that has more red. I'm going to get some brown. I have a burnt umber. If you don't have brown on your palette, you can mix it from the primaries, red, yellow, and blue. You can mix it from secondaries, yellow, green, and purple. I'm gonna use my burnt umber and then add a little raw umber on the side so I have a reddish brown. We're gonna want to have a gray as well. These are for the basket colors. And a really good way to make gray is a blue and a brown together, blue and a reddish brown. Okay, here's the picture again. Make sure you have this sketched. I'm going to later decide that my pumpkin is too tall and skinny. Nothing wrong with that. It just needed it to balance. So I'm going to change that a little as I go. First step is fun. Clear water. And I want you to saturate around the whole design, leaving a little gap between your design and the water background. The water will only travel up to the point of your water. The paint will only travel up to the point where you've painted the water. So it's going to keep everything else safe and dry. So go ahead all the way around. It doesn't have to be puddles and puddles, just kind of glistening. I'm picking up cerulean blue. It's a nice sky blue color and just dropping it in. Dropping some around the edges. You don't have to paint all the strokes. You can just drop blobs of that paint. It is going to travel. It's going to travel towards, and get lighter as it goes towards the center. So brush it around. You can push it around a little bit. This is wet on wet. I used a wet, watered pigment into a wet area of the paper. It's going to dry a lot lighter. It's a very cool thing that watercolor does. I like having the outside corners a little darker to make it look like a vignette. So I'm adding a little more blue before it dries into the corners. You can do the same or do your own thing. This is a good method for doing skies as well. And you can use tissue paper to pull some color out. You can use saran wrap to pull some color out. Okay, light yellow, orangey yellow. We're using an orangey yellow color. And I'm just going to fill the whole thing first with it. Pumpkin. We're letting the background dry while we do this. We're going to move from thing to thing while each element dries. While this is wet, I'm going to drop in some orange, a pretty medium toned orange. I'm going to leave the top part of the pumpkin alone because I'm going to keep that yellowy, highlighty color up there. And then I'm wiping out a little more because I wanted that highlight area to go down. You can take a clean brush that you swished around first and then tapped on your paper towel, and it'll pull some color out for you. I want to keep the light in there and mix the yellow bit a little bit in. Okay, now let's mix up your shades of brown. And I'm looking at this as about 5 squares across with 2 bands. This is the bushel basket. And then underneath and above the bands, I'm just putting them next to each other. So I'm leaving a little gap between them so they don't completely blend together. I have this little light brown, I have a darker brown, I added a little red, and I want them to be kind of distinct squares, but they will blend a little where they touch, which is fine. We're just trying to get the look of like chipboard kind of. It's on the side of the baskets. The coolest thing too about watercolor is look, you add a little water and it just makes a lighter shade. So I'm using the same brown I used on the left side, but I added water and it made it lighter. And it's perfect. You can do so much just with this simple color palette because your lights and darks come from water and then deepening the pigment. So see, the look is already getting there where we have different little squares. Now I mixed up a gray, which is I used blue. I used an ultramarine blue and a raw umber to get a really light gray. And I'm putting that in for the bands across just to keep them a little grayish. And we're going to come back to those in a minute. Now I'm mixing up a bunch of just little piles of red for the mums. I'm going to make the mums red. You can make them red, orange, whatever. I have a darker brown. I'm going to add some of that. And we're just going to try them, do them organically and make them look varied. You don't want to have the same look over and over and over again. So mix it up. I have it all on the palette. I'm going to put in, let's concentrate again. Remember, we're looking at the shadow being on the left side of our vignette. So let's say the sun is coming from the right. So some of our darker flower tones will be at the bottom and at the left, similar to the pumpkin when we get to the last. First stage of the flowers, guys, is just drop it in and just get a little wash over it. It's going to dry. It's going to dry lighter. We'll go back in. You can add different colors. I added a little bit of yellow into some of them. You just want to vary it. It's going to make it look a lot more organic when you look at something. If you go out and look at plantings of mums, there's some that are shaded, there's some that have a little different tone. They're not all the same color or hue, they're all different. So some of them, your little flowers can go sideways, like sideways ovals. Some can be circles, some can be random little shapes. Just make it look organic. Some are sideways. We're looking at them sideways. Some we're looking at facing us. But mums are sort of a mound, like cupcake frosting. So that's the kind of shape I'm keeping is like a mound, a circular shape on top of this basket. This is the fun part of watercolor too, which I'm finding as an acrylic artist, it's just not natural to leave white gaps, but it is what makes watercolor watercolor. Having those white gaps and the paper is part of your entire artwork. The paper is one of your is works with you as part of your supplies. It's part of the art. So leaving the white part obviously is part of it. And the way that it soaks in and the way that it works for you is just on definitely unlike working on anything that I've worked on. I've done murals, paint board, painting canvas, painting everything, and every kind of art. This is singularly one of the coolest experiences because of the way that paper works with you. Okay, while we're letting the first layer of our flowers dry, let's do the shadow. Concentrate on the left side and the bottom of the pumpkin. So I just got a darker orange, like a deeper orangey red, and then added a touch of brown to it. And then while we're here, we can fill in the stem and just make it all a brown, and we'll add a little darker shadow to it later. And then put a little area where the stem is indented into the top of the pumpkin. And then I'm going to add even more reddish brown to the bottom. It's going to dry. It looks weird at first, but it's going to dry and be a really cool shade there. Doesn't it look good already? I'm so excited already. You could do so many things. You can make a card out of this. You could make little placemats if you're doing a bigger painting than I am. Give it to somebody, make their day. I like to do free art Fridays and I leave random art around the city. Okay, go ahead and darken in some of the spots. Hopefully, you have some left on your palette of these colors you were using before. I'm adding just darkening. You don't have to do the whole square. You don't have to fill it in like a perfect square. I'm just going to leave a little bit on the edge there and then fill in some, leave some unfilled, just random. It's not like a coloring book where you want to color in all between the boundaries. The best is if you skip some, let your brush go across and skip some areas. And then we'll put a little darker on the right side where there's the shadow from the pumpkin. And then for the bottom, go ahead and just take a strip of brown, the bottom and the top of where your lines are going across, and just define those a little bit better right now. And then we'll do it under that first row as well. And once this layer has dried, we'll define it even more and it'll look really good. Okay. If your flowers are dry, your first layer, go ahead and put the medium value at the bottom and the left. So this is giving it a little dimension. You can leave some undone like this. Some of them can just be the first layer only. That's fine. They don't all have to have it. I think I'm going to go ahead and do most of mine. And then you can also grab different colors for the bottom shadowing. Like I put a little brownish yellow here just to have a little variety. And then some of the places around the edge, you can have a really light, just like a hint of a couple hints of blooms over there. And then let's build up the side shadow by adding a little more brown to your orange and just building up that shadowed area a little bit more. Don't worry, we're going to go into this middle part too. We're not going to leave it such a contrast between the middle and the outside. And I'm just blending a little with a wet brush and just blending a little bit of my top of the pumpkin and the side. You can also take a paper towel and pull out some color if you feel like you need to. That's the beautiful thing. You can add a little bit of water later and lighten an area. Now, here's something too. You can add and define some of those lines in the pumpkin, the indents, but we're not going to leave it like that. We're going to glaze a little bit over the top. This is something that I absolutely love with watercolor. You can take a thin coat of a color and glaze it over the top, similar to Renaissance artists in oil, discovering the glazing and layering lots of glazes to make that skin tone. Like Botticelli, Venus, Birth of Venus, that skin tone like glowing because of it. Look what we're doing now. We're adding a little bit of yellow over everything to just glaze it yellow and make the yellow shine and sort of make everything that's underneath shine with a yellowy, more warm color in there. I really like that about watercolor is the glazing technique. Okay, also I decided that my pumpkin was too tall and thin, so I'm adding to the right side. I'm gonna have to fix that later because we're just gonna have a random line that doesn't really connect. We're gonna add some shadow to it later, but I needed to fatten it out somehow to balance. I really like you see how that yellow just really helped to glaze it all together. Okay, while we're waiting, we're gonna have to do one more flower layer, but let's just get into the greens and get them on the palette. I have a sap green, which is a couple of different pigments. It's like there's a little brownish in it. And then I have a phthalo green, which is kind of a pure, bright, punchy green. And then I'm gonna also add yellow ochre to my palette so that I have a little army green, like a olive green. Then have a greenish yellow, like a chartreuse color as well. And just like with the reds, we just want to have a bunch of different color varieties. But we can't put the green in yet until we're finalized with the flowers because we don't want those two to run together. It would become brown. So let's see if they're dry, see if there's any place you want to add in some of your final darks to the mums. So I had a couple places over here. I'm gonna do some down here. And this is just taking some of the red I already had. I'm gonna add a brown because this is our darkest color, a little bit of brown, raw sienna because it's a reddish brown. And also some just areas where I'm gonna use straight red and drop that in. So there's some bright, shiny reds. Like, don't forget, we're concentrating our darker ones on the left and on the bottom. See, I'm trying to keep the right side a little lighter because the light is coming that way. So make sure some of those are dark, dark, dark in there. And then some of the right. See, if you squeeze your eyes halfway, you can sort of see what we're doing. You can see that it's lighter on the right side. Okay. Last bits, you can throw in a couple little random shades. You can have some little yellows, oranges. Last chance to do that. And then let's get that to dry. And while it's drying, we're going to do one last bit of layering on the basket. And let's define underneath. Look how good that looks. Define it with a little gray or a brown. It's going to make it look like it's 3D there. And then a little bit under where the flowers are. So it looks like a little shadow. And then on the right side. So perfect. Now check your flowers first. Really, we should ideally give it some more time, but I'm daring to go ahead. Now, think about mum leaves are kind of jaggedy. So let's make them kind of zigzag. And then we want them to kind of pop out everywhere, not just be uniform. Some of them will go over the side of the basket, some of them will be flinging out the top, wherever. And we don't take a long time with this. We can just throw these in. This is our first layer of these. You can grab a different green while you're going. Make just little squiggles, really. Maybe little circles here and there, but squiggles for the most part make them look organic. We're gonna throw in a few stems, but really just the hint of them. We don't really see a lot of stems. I think you do see some in the reference picture. So get some more as I'm picking up this other green that was more of a sap green, less of an olive. Just putting some stems in, tiny bit. Really, these are really not a big thing. They're just another little element in there. And then here's my yellowy green. I'm gonna put that in some places too. And don't forget, guys, we are leaving the white space. That's the magic. That's what's going to give you the watercolory look, the looser, a little bit looser watercolory look. Super fun, super easy. Hopefully, you guys thought it was easy. Okay, last bit. Let's put a little last darkening on the basket. And then we also have, so I have a little bit of brown and do right under that first layer. We're letting our leaves dry now. And then let's go ahead while we have the brown and put the stem on the left side, darken the stem. And then darken the divot where the stem is attached to the top of the pumpkin and make it look a little more 3D. And then do a little bit more darkening here and there on the pumpkin. And a little bit, I glazed on like a medium orange there, just the last bits of orange to make it a little more orangey. And I want to get a little bit darker at the very bottom one last time. So I added a little bit of red and I'm adding a little brown. So it's like a reddish brown. I do want some red to show too a little bit. And I'm just going to really make that at the bottom. With dropping it in, it's not very wet, my paint right now. It's pretty like a thick, just straight reddish brown paint that I'm putting over the top there. Okay, now the last thing. I just skipped ahead because I forgot to show you about the shadows. I'm so sorry, but here you go. So I mixed some blue with some brown to make a gray. And look where we put the gray. Left of the pumpkin, underneath the basket and pumpkin. And you're gonna slide that out a little to the left. And then I decided how fun would it be to splatter paint a little bit. I don't know if I would do that again, but it was pretty cool. I used like a yellow and orange. You could do that by hitting the sticks. And here's the secret, y'all. A little white paint marker. Until I become professional watercolorist, I'm using that if I didn't leave enough white space. Look, I just added a big chunk on top of the pumpkin because I thought that was a good idea. And then I'm putting like a little bit on the basket. Just draw some white lines here and there. Love it. Thanks for spending some time with me, guys. You could do it in lots of different colors as well. You could take a yellow background, do lots of things. I hope you had so much fun with it. Catch you next time. Be sure to like and subscribe for more. Follow me on Insta, and we'll do lots of fun painting together.